Hi guys, so I'm going to be talking to you about gender, and just to get started, the things I talk about in this video apply to me. They don't apply to all people who are transgender, so just don't assume that literally everybody who is ever transgender fits into this. First of all, I'm going to define transgender, and the definition of transgender is that your gender identity does not completely fit with your biological sex. An example of this is an AMAB person who identifies as a demi-boy. If you are AMAB, you are assigned male at birth, and if you're a demi-boy, you partially identify as a boy, but not completely. The other part might be something else entirely or unknown. Two boxes they like to put people into. There you've got your female box and your male box, and most people think that transgender is when you hop from one binary box to the next binary box, and that's simply not true. There's a whole spectrum of genders right in the middle of the two, and there are genders that don't fit at all, like agender, you're completely genderless. So non-binary means that you don't fit into either boxes, and you're still transgender because your gender does not fit your biological sex. Okay, gender has a few parts, and there's your biological sex, there's your gender expression, your internal gender, and I've got another part which is like how you want your body to be like, and this is shown really well by this diagram here. As you can see, these four things are not linked, and you can have any combination of any of the traits at one time. So I'm a masculine, agender, trans guy, so my gender identity is agender. I'm genderless. I don't consider myself to have a gender, but I would prefer to be born AMAB, so that's where the trans guy bit comes in. And my gender expression is very masculine, like I like wearing guys' clothes and I want to have short hair and that kind of thing. So don't just assume someone's gender from what they look like. Their gender expression might be very different to what their gender identity is. Like, you can get a lot of masculine girls that still identify as a girl, they just express their gender very masculinely. So it doesn't mean that they're transgender, it just means that they have a different gender expression. So my gender journey started about May 2013, where, I don't know, something just sort of clicked in my head, and the earliest memory I have it coming to the surface is when I was talking to my friends about how annoying it was to be female, and I casually said if someone offered me the chance to be male, I would take it really quickly. And they're just like, what? We wouldn't at all. Being a boy would be gross. And then after that, I sort of gender swapped myself in a daydream, and something just clicked and it felt really right. After it clicked, I became very uncomfortable with being female, and I really wanted to be male. Like, I would imagine myself being a boy and go through loads of memories and see how it would have changed if I was born a boy. So that I kind of got really uncomfortable with the way I looked, and I really wanted to cut my hair and be more masculine. And I remember just sitting on the bus, imagining what my body would look like if I were a guy. Like, my hands would be bigger and my shoulders would be broader and that kind of thing. So after a while it became really bad, and I became really uncomfortable with my body, and this is called gender dysphoria. It's when you're really uncomfortable with the way your body is, and it's sort of gender related. So for example, you're uncomfortable with having curves, or if you're AMAB, you're uncomfortable with your shoulders being so broad, or facial hair and that kind of thing. I was really quite uncomfortable with having long hair because people just instantly assumed I was a girl. After prom, I cut it myself. It didn't really help that much because I still saw myself as looking really feminine, and I was not comfortable with that. And dysphoria is very closely linked with depression. Like, I got depression pretty quickly, and it became sort of all-consuming, and I didn't find anything interesting anymore, and I would just sort of curl up into a ball and cry, or watch endless episodes of CSI because I wanted to forget that I existed like this. And that was a really hard place to be because I had no idea what was going on in my head, and for a while I was really desperate to be male, and I was like, yes, I'm a boy, I'm gonna be as male as I can. And after a while that kind of wore off, so I didn't have such a strong desire to be male, so I was quite confused about what my gender identity actually was, and I knew I was non-binary because I went on Tumblr and I looked up all of these trans men and how they were struggling and that sort of thing. I could identify with some of the things they were saying, but not all of them. I basically researched most of my stuff off of Tumblr, and that really helped me to become more to terms with my gender identity. Last Christmas I got lots of male clothes. I got like male jeans and I got a binder, and that really helped, and after that my depression subsided. Binder is a tight top that flattens your chest to give it a more masculine appearance, and I got mine on eBay for about £3.50. If you can afford it and you are out to your parents, please buy a proper binder from a proper shop. I can't stress that enough. Do not use ace bandages. They are horrible and they can break your ribs and give you horrible bruising, and you need to look after your body no matter how much you hate it. It's really important. Your health is very important. Now my binder isn't that great, but I bought mine pretty secretively, and I didn't want to spend too much money on something that I might not use. Last year I thought it might just be a phase I was going through, but I've worn it nearly every day this year, and I probably couldn't deal without it, really. And I really need to get a new one. I came to terms with being transgender about 4 months ago, and that was mainly after going on a Tumblr blog called the Transgender Teen Survival Guide. Going on there and talking to other transgender teens and listening to what they had to say was really helpful for me. I went through about 5 different gender identities before I found one that fitted, and now I need about 3 or 4 labels to describe my gender. But gender can't really be labelled that easily, particularly if you're non-binary, because the spectrum is just so wide. I wasn't sure what my gender identity actually was, so I just tried things. I tried on different labels, I toyed around with my gender expression, and I found that wearing male clothes or slightly more masculine clothes made me feel a lot more comfortable, and wearing a binder really helped. And having short hair, that helped a lot. The difference between how I was in the summer and how I am now really showed how bad it was. Like right now I'm much happier, and I'm interested in things. I'm not as lazy or sad, and I can look in the mirror without thinking I'm just horrible looking and that kind of thing. But really my biggest thing that helped the most was basically telling myself that I was a guy, and I just changed the way I saw myself really gradually. So now when I look in the mirror, I'm pretty happy with what I see, and I really need to have a haircut, and I need to put on a bit of eyeliner onto my eyebrows to make them more masculine, and I would love to go on tea so my voice would break, just to be a bit more masculine. Apart from that, pretty happy. If you're struggling with your gender identity, it's a good idea to experiment with things, like try new clothes or get a haircut, and maybe ask your friends to change your pronouns or change your name. Simple things like just tell your teachers what pronouns you want them to use. I emailed all my teachers telling them to use gender neutral pronouns with me, and they're all very supportive, which I'm very glad about. You just have to be brave. One thing I found that really helped with determining my gender identity was wearing different clothes. Like I bought male clothes, and I know that I feel a lot more comfortable in male clothes than I do in female clothes. And I got a haircut and I feel a lot better with short hair. Another good thing to do is research. I researched a lot. I found people who had certain gender identities and I see if I could identify with them. Being part of the transgender community on Tumblr is really helpful. Some things can be triggering and make your situation worse, but if you're careful, it can be a really good place to be. And a few blogs I would recommend would be the Transgender Teen Survival Guide, as I mentioned earlier, and Life Outside the Binary. I'll stick the links down there so you can click on them and have a look. And you don't even have to have Tumblr to do it. You can send anonymous messages and ask people questions and do that sort of thing. And it's good to have a support group. If your family and friends aren't there for you, other people will be. Don't suffer alone. Like, you've got to get yourself out there and get some support.